How to Survive Camping by Fainting Goat, submitted to the No Sleep subreddit. I run a private campground. My family's owned it for generations now. It's about 300 acres, most of that shaded by the forest, and the rest is an open field. We host events like dog clubs, music festivals, etc. We've also got open camping weekends throughout the year, and in the height of the summer, we're open full time for general camping. A lot of people take advantage of that. It's a cheap and pleasant vacation. Hammocks get erected in the trees, grills get unloaded from the backs of trucks. There's some pretty elaborate setups from the people that come back year after year. The return campers are smart. They know what they're doing. Everyone knows their job when they roll in. They unload as a group, tents start to go up, community areas and kitchens go in the same place year after year. Where they found the lamp suits their setup best. Tent locations might change, but every camper knows what their tent is going, and they're allowed to land. It's a far cry from the disheveled masses that show up and simply expect everything to work out with no prior planning. By noon on setup day, the experienced campers are sitting under their day shades sipping beer, while the newbies are relocating tents because they didn't leave enough room for walkways. I've tried to help. I put together a guide that everyone receives in the mail once I have the registration info and payment. Sure, the postage is a bit of an expense, but I feel having a hard copy makes them more likely to read it. Not having to fill out as much paperwork with the police is worth the money. I've titled the brochure, How to Survive Your Camping Experience. I wish people would take that name more seriously. The first page is a full practical advice, stuff like 1. Have a sturdy, waterproof container that holds spare change of clothes and a blanket. This will ensure you have something warm and dry if your tent floods. 2. Place solar lights near your tent stakes. This will keep people from tripping over them or the ropes at night. 3. If the ground is soft from heavy rain, reinforce tent stakes either by weighing them down or by using longer stakes. They can get pulled out of the ground by strong wind otherwise. 4. When planning your camp, allocate 3 extra feet per tent. This leaves room for ropes and stakes. The second page is advice more specific to the area. This campsite has been in the family for generations after all, and a parcel of land obtains a sort of significance when it becomes passed down from heir to heir. It is an old place in the world, perhaps not an ancient place, but old enough to have attracted the attention of those things that prefer old places to make their homes. We will have to sell the campsite before it becomes an ancient place, as it will be unusable at that point. But there are still many generations to go before that happens. This is the part that the new campers don't take seriously. They think it's a prank, some little joke of the reclusive camp manager who perhaps doesn't spend much time around other people. The experienced campers try to tell them otherwise, but they don't always listen. I feel my rules aren't onerous. Here's a sampler. 1. If you hear something trying to enter your tent at night, sit up and say in a clear, calm voice that you are not receiving visitors, but it is welcome to visits in the morning. If a stranger appears the next day asking for entrance to your camp, invite them in and give them food and drink. This will give you good luck for the rest of your stay. 2. Fairy lights are generally benign, but if there are remains of a small animal inside the ring, however, inform camp management immediately. 3. Don't follow the lights. I can't believe I even have to say this one. Don't follow the lights. 4. If you see a group of people dancing in a circle around a fire, you may join them if they welcome you in. Dance with them until the music ends. Do not look at the musicians. If they do not welcome you, but instead stop and stare, back away slowly and then leave. If they follow you, you can try to run, but it's likely already too late. Pray that death comes swiftly. I confess it's a haphazard list, but there's a lot of vicious things out there, and they all function in slightly different ways. I do some things as a part of camp management in an effort to minimize the danger to my campers. We set out traps for the creatures stupid enough to fall in them, so that they can be dispatched by my uncle and his 2 sons. We're close during the Pentecost on Midsummer Day. and other significant times of the year, but we can't do everything. We can't save people from themselves. Every morning I circle the camp on a four-wheeler. My staff does the same, a couple times a day. We look for new developments on the land, a tree that needs to be pulled down, for example, and campers know they can hail any of us if they need something. I leave directly after I finish my breakfast and a cup of coffee. My house is on the campsite, so it's especially easy for me to take the morning shift. There's never many people awake yet, so it was especially noticeable when I saw a man approaching me head on. Walking down the middle of the road, he looked unremarkable. They always do. But he walked slowly and deliberately, his head bowed so that it looked difficult to see his face, and he carried before him a strange cup. I pulled the four-wheeler over and waited, my stomach twisting with fear. Rule 12. If you're approached by a man offering you a drink from a cup that resembles a human skull, accept. It will taste foul, and you will not be able to eat without vomiting for the next 24 hours. But this is a better alternative than what he will do if you refuse. I have drank from the cup before, and it is how I learned of his existence, and subsequently added him to the rules. He stopped me on the road at I thought he was a camper needing assistance until he handed me the skull cup and bade me drink. I did, as I had already learned that when a being of power asks something of you, it's better to comply. It may not be enough to save you, something they invite you to partake in their demise, but the odds of compliance are better. He lifted the cup to my lips, and I drank. One swallow, another. He kept the cup there, and his thin fingers brushed my hair back when it slipped past my ears, and I drank it in entirety. The waters inside tasted bitter and salty, with a vegetable undertone. My stomach twisted, and I swallowed hard, struggling to keep it down. "Thank you for the drink," I said when I was done, trying to sound sincere. He knew I lied, for he smiled briefly in a weary humor, his dark eyes flashing with cold amusement. "It was wise to not refuse," he replied. He told me what he would have done, if I had not drunk, and my insides crawled with horror as he spoke, and I wanted him to stop. But to interrupt would have been a dire insult. His words were etched in my memories, and for days after I wept whenever I thought of the fate I had so narrowly avoided. I still feel cold and small when I think of those things he told me. That evening, I threw up my dinner. I threw up the crackers I ate. I even threw up water. Finally, I stopped eating and drinking altogether and waited a full day to try again. I was weak and miserable, but I survived. Now, seeing the man approaching on the road, I mentally cursed my misfortune. This was our busy time of year. I couldn't afford to be sick for a day. He stopped just before he reached me, raised a hand and beckoned for me to come closer. He didn't raise his hand until I stood just across from him, and when he did, he flashed that thin, dry smile at seeing the expression of dread on my face. "Are you not thirsty?" he asked mockingly. "Not particularly, but if you wish to offer me a drink, I'll not be so rude as to refuse." My heart hammered in my chest. "Let him release me," I silently pleaded. He put a hand over the top of the skull-shaped cup, covering the carved opening and the water inside. "Be at ease. I did not come to offer you a drink. I came to give you a warning. Some of your charges have conducted business with the children." I stood there staring blankly at him in incomprehension. He sighed almost imperceptibly, and even though his expression did not change, I felt the weight of his disapproval when he spoke next. These ancient beings do not enjoy having to explain themselves. "The children of no wagon," he said, speaking slowly, as if that would help me understand. "Someone bought ice from them." "Oh," I said. "Oh no, you won't save them." The man walked past me, his shoulder brushing against mine as he did. "No one will." Rule 18. You can buy ice from the children that approach your camp, only if they have a wagon. Those are the children of other campers trying to make some extra spending money. They only upcharge by a few dollars, so consider tipping. If a group of children approach without a wagon, do not buy from them. Act like they don't exist. They'll eventually leave. It wasn't until he was almost out of sight that I realized I didn't have any idea which campsite had purchased the ice, and there were a lot of people here right now. I did the dumb thing. I jumped on the four-wheeler and turned it around and went after him. I pulled up alongside of the road, a respectful distance away, and called out to him, "Hey, what campsite was it?" He paused almost imperceptibly. "Are you thirsty after all?" he asked, even though his words were mild. I understood it for the threat it was. "Nope, I'm good. Sorry for bothering you." I drove away before he changed his mind and granted me mercy. This was a terrible dilemma for me. I hadn't had anyone buy from the children without wagons before. Most people find their silent stares creepy, and the normal children are pretty aggressive with their ice routes anyway, so that no one needs ice by the time those other children show up. I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea how to undo what has been done. There was, however, someone I could ask.